Hey everybody, for today's topic, it's one that the majority of us likely don't think about often, but it's one that some may worry about a lot: food insecurity. According to Feeding America, a nationwide network of food banks that feeds tens of millions of individuals across the nation, food insecurity is a household's inability to provide enough food for every person to live an active and healthy life. And in a scientific sense, it can be described as a person living more than 175% below the poverty line and not within 3/4 of a mile of a food supply. Some of the leading causes of food insecurity can be unexpected familial or medical expenses, and truly just one bad month can be enough to plunge an individual into an insecure position. Nationally, in 2018, an estimated 11.1% of households in America were food insecure. And according to Map the Meal, Comal County has a 12.1% food insecurity rate, with the child food insecurity rate at 19.9% in Comal County. So I even talked with someone who spent years in this field in studying extensively the issue of food insecurity, Colette Nies. For over 20 years, she's focused on land and food justice, including experience in contracts, energy law, land negotiation, the food trade, identifying causes of poverty and food insecurity, and the effectiveness of social policies in the Texas House and Senate. Colette is also a Presbyterian chaplain and is currently in her third year of a doctoral program in land, food ethics, and faith formation, with a focus on how local communities and churches can strive towards food sovereignty and justice. She is also running for county commissioner for Precinct 3 here in Comal County. So we've seen that the issue of food insecurity is a prevalent one, and one that affects people here in Comal County at a higher rate than the national level. So I asked Colette first how she originally got into this field, and throughout her experience, if she's found any groups of people here or any broader context to be disproportionately affected. That you have a long history in not only researching but dealing with food insecurity and the issues that come along with it. How did you originally get into that field?
So I'm a third generation organic gardener, and so I've really been interested in. I started out interested in just the nutrition aspect and the healing aspect of food and the connection to disease and health within the body, just since as long as I can remember. So the food trade for me in agribusiness, not only domestically and internationally, had always been, I won't say always, but has been really important to me in my research and study. And then it wasn't until I went to seminary at Austin Presbyterian Theological Seminary that I really started to interconnect this was in 2004, started to interconnect the food trade and agribusiness and kind of the war on the soil with theology. And at that time, it was a fairly new emerging field, which is called ecological theology, and this kind of understanding of who God is and the covenant, the Hebraic covenant that says, that you have a covenant with Abraham and you also have a covenant with creation, and that those two both need to be honored. And it's not this kind of dominion over, suppress, subdue, rule over, but dominion with, as in like we are a part of the whole, and to damage or to disrespect, to rape, pillage, destroy the environment is to do that exact same thing to.
So Colette was able to sort of tie back her interest in combating food insecurity back into the idea of ecological sustainability, which is also a large part of her campaign platform. And as for those that are disproportionately affected by food insecurity, Colette emphasized that the factors regarding much of the issue are historical and include the historical marginalization of some neighborhoods and communities, historical redlining, and consequently have disproportionately affected some of the Latinx and African American communities. Obviously, Comal County has its own unique issues with food insecurity.
So food insecurity here is, bringing in kind of my systemic understanding of social work policy is to be able to look at how systems work together, to bring in kind of my basis for understanding. I want to say theology because I do want to respect a element of separation of church and state. So I don't want to implement my own belief system on someone else. I'm just telling you where I'm coming from and why I'm passionate about these things. But to see how when you have 1 in 5 children in Comal County that are food insecure, these issues for me go very deep. I've been working on this a really long time, and they are all interconnected. The inequity that you have with if a child is food insecure, that goes back to you know, a lot of times it goes into classism, it goes into racism, who is afforded the ability for access, who's afforded transportation, whose, vote may have been suppressed. I mean, it is very interconnected. And a lot of times people don't want to talk about those issues because they seem like national issues, but they are right here.
Now, New Braunfels has our local food bank, a volunteer organization that has provided support to thousands of individuals in providing the nutrition they need. In 2017 alone, the food bank distributed over 4.3 million pounds of food to over 7,000 individuals on a monthly basis. But it is just that. It's a volunteer organization whose resources are limited to what's donated to them and whose impact is limited to those that reach out to them. So I asked Colette, what solutions could she offer if she were to be elected in November?
If you were to be elected, what issue or what would you prioritize? What solutions do you have to some of the food insecurity issues that we have here in Comal County?
Well, I think part of, as any academic will tell you, awareness is huge. So I mean, you have no idea how many conversations I've had with people where I've talked about, 1 in 5 kids are food insecure, and they just didn't believe me. They're like, well, where did you get that information? I'm like, well, you can look on the census, you can look at Feed America. I mean, there's a plethora of poverty information out there. And it was like, because they didn't experience it or they didn't see it, then they believed it didn't exist. And that's a really challenging place to come from when your basic fact line is not the same. And it's not, I think that what we can do is not argue over that kind of stuff, but to know that one of the beautiful things about local government is it's not about being Republican or Democrat or independent or libertarian or green or whatever you are. Because you're not voting on national issues or federal issues like, healthcare and mental health, all these overarching issues that tend to divide people. We're talking about, can we in Comal County have clean water? So to get back to food insecurity, transportation is a huge part of that, in the sense of food insecurity. In this sense, is divided. There's the difference between food insecurity, food sovereignty, and what you want to call food insecurity, and food sovereignty. Now, when we say food security, what does that mean? And what does food sovereignty mean? So food insecurity in and of itself is I believe it's 175%, maybe it's 180% above the poverty line, and you cannot access a grocery store or access fresh fruits and vegetables to buy within a mile of your house. So if you look at the way that New Braunfels in Comal County is set up, that's a lot of area where people don't have access. There's no transit system. There's very few roads that actually have a bike lane. There is not kind of a rent-a-car kind of aspect that they have in Austin or other bigger cities. And while you say, oh, we don't need it because it's New Braunfels, it's a small town, well, in 2050, we're supposed to be 260,000 people. So you can't wait till then to enact something like that if we already have 1 in 5 kids, that are food insecure.
So she's begun to describe some of the issues that feed into individuals becoming food insecure. And many of them you would not initially consider being factors, but according to her, many are solvable. Colette continued on to describe the difference between the labels of food insecure and food secure, which, paraphrasing her, simply means that those that are food secure don't fall into the previous distinction, but still don't have full access to the market. This can mean that they don't have access to healthy and fully nutritional food that is essential to maintaining a healthy life, as well as food of their own preference, food that is appropriate to their lifestyle and to their culture, rather than just access to food of some sort.
Relating to Comal County, if you have people that don't have access to food, they don't have access to transportation, you imagine an elderly person where there's so many areas in town that do not have sidewalks. Maybe they're in a wheelchair, or they're disabled or have a physical limitation where they're not able to walk for more than a mile, or perhaps you're a single parent that has 3 children and there's no bus system and you have to get groceries, so you have to spend 2.5 hours walking to access groceries. And of course, you can't fill up the back of your car with a bunch of groceries, so you have to get what you can carry. During this whole pandemic, it's really interesting to see, there's a lot of people that were like, oh, well, you're going to use the HEB, I could go and pick it up, or I can get it delivered. Well, if you use SNAP or WIC, you were not allowed to pay online. So therefore, you were forced to go into and put your family at risk with the foods that they told you were acceptable to buy with WIC.
So SNAP is the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, which was formerly known as food stamps. It's used to help individuals buy the food that they need to maintain good health. And WIC is the Special Supplemental Nutrition Program for women, infants, and children. This national program provides federal grants to states for supplemental foods, health care referrals, and nutrition education for low-income pregnant, breastfeeding, and non-breastfeeding women, and to infants and children up to the age of 5 who are found to be at nutritional risk. Both of these organizations, at a statewide and a national level, are so beneficial to those who use them. And while these programs can cover a wide range of those that are food insecure, there's still more layers, underlying issues on local levels that need to be addressed.
So there's a lot of, mind you, there's things that the county can do, but this is also a much bigger problem.
In Comal County, as I mentioned earlier, the foremost organization that is responding to the food insecurity issue is the local food bank. The local food bank is a client choice food bank which enables people to choose which items and products they need or prefer. Through this, they are producing less waste than traditional food banks, supporting unique family needs, empowering individuals and families, and not only providing them with the nutritional value they need, but they're also encouraging healthy food options in the process. The idea of solving the smaller factors that feed into the larger giant of the food insecurity issue is one that Colette plans on encouraging if elected, and is one that will not only help combat the issue of food insecurity, but will also spread awareness of the issue. By pushing to solve the issues regarding specifically the accessibility aspect to food, with making sure individuals at least have the capability to more easily access food supplies, and by pushing to expand food sovereignty to various aspects of the community, Comal County can begin to sweep away the many roadblocks that have led to such a high food insecurity rate within the county. Thank you all so much for joining me. I hope you all learned as much as I did about the very prevalent issue of food insecurity in Comal County. And just as a more personal note, if you have the opportunity, if you have the resources, please reach out and do what you can to support the New Braunfels Food Bank or any of the other local organizations that are helping to combat the food insecurity issue here in Comal County. They all do incredible work and offer so much support to so many people in our county.